I believe.
Yeah, it's not showing up the recording now. Okay. Welcome everyone to about an hour talking about data governance and why it should be important in your environment to have a look at your data estate and to know where your data is stored. And I also thought of another kind of title for the session, and I think we can also name it, oh my God, it's data everywhere, and data is popping up everywhere. And I would like to show you a way how to get an overview about your data estate and how this new thing called Azure Purview maybe can help us to find the data we want to find. We catalog the data, we classify the data, and maybe we can use Azure Purview for that. If you have any questions, if we get the chat during the meeting, it's okay. If you want to just put in the question, unmute yourself and interrupt myself, I'm okay with the questions in between. And why is it an important topic? It's data everywhere. If you open a door, there's data. If you open another door, there's data. If you go into another house, you see data, and data is coming from everywhere. Data is almost produced everywhere, and data is collected. Many companies, well, they have hundreds of different systems. They have hundreds of different databases. They have file storages. They have a data lake or data lakes in their environment. And it's not that easy to really get an overview or to know where the data is stored, where to find, for example, customer data. Is there somewhere an archive of email addresses? Is there somewhere an archive of product inventory databases? Where do I find those things? And data, yeah, is often distributed and separated. We sometimes call it data islands. So we have a data island for our customers. We have a data island for our production systems. Maybe we have some Internet of Things systems that are producing data, but are not that directly connected to the other islands. And so maybe we would need some sort of bridging system to bring those data islands together to find similar pieces, or even something on a small island that doesn't look that kind of nice, or in that way, I would say that really looks nice there. But we don't know what is exactly on that island. So we need to have a look at those islands and find some sort of way to get a deeper look and to close those gaps. And sometimes we have to search for data. In huge companies, we are not that kind of lucky to have only one database for our customers. We have CRM systems, we have ERP systems, we have hundreds of different systems that are dealing with somehow customer data. And where to start, where to look for the data. And wouldn't it be nice if we have something like a map of our data estate, a data map, or something like a catalog where we can search for data estates and something like this. And I think there is a tool that could help us, and the tool is called Azure Purview. And Azure Purview is a new service. Yeah, it's new. It's in preview since December last year. And it's a data governance service. And it's a data catalog service in the Azure cloud. And within your data estate, I think it's important to get some order into your data. If you have a look at that hundreds of books, it's not that easy to find something. So we need to do some sort of ordering. We need to file the different artifacts. We need to file the different databases, data lakes, file storages, whatever. and to bring in some order and maybe some index that we can search for it and that we get the information. Okay, if we want to learn Russian for dummies, well, here is the book we need. So we need some order and some system in an ideal case to find the right book in that case, or the right data that we need to work on. And now, yeah, it's time for diving deeper into the Azure Purview universe. Before I start, 2 or 3 sentences about myself. My name is Wolfgang. I'm working and living in Austria. I'm working with and on data. I'm working as a data consultant, working in the data integration, data warehousing, data platform field, everything around data. And what I also like is, I like to speak at conferences when there were the usual times. I'd like to travel to conferences. And what I've done in the past 2 years, well, I started writing, and we published the Power BI für Dummies. It's the German version. So the initial book of Power BI, which actually is a thing in my life, Power BI, and everything around data platform. As I said, if there are any questions, Richard.
Yeah, so I can't seem to get the chat function working, but the raise hands does work. So if anybody has a question, raise your hands. I'm sat here moderator, and I'll pick that up.
Yeah, perfect. If you can have a look at the Teams window, I try to move a little bit to the left and have a look at there. But if somebody has the hand up for a little bit longer, just interrupt.
Yeah, I've got that covered. Thanks.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So what is that Azure Purview thing? And I've taken a screenshot from the documentation, and Microsoft, well, calls it a unified data governance service. And that data governance service, well, it helps us to map our data across hybrid sources. So it's not only limited to Azure data, not only limited to data that is stored in the Azure cloud. You can also map and inventory your data that is stored locally, or even in other clouds like the Amazon cloud. So one of the things Azure Purview helps you is to map your data. And what mapping your data means, I think you will see it in the demo, what the Purview team thinks about the data map itself. And discovery of trusted data and the classification. So in many companies, there are people that know where the data lives, and that there are systems that data is stored somewhere. But if organizations get bigger, organizations get more departments, organizations get international, there is no single person that knows it all. So we need some sort of discovery of data sources, maybe some sort of automatic discovery, and what is really important to classify the data. If you have one database, one ERP system, it's easy. Maybe you know, okay, it's the table customers that contains my customer information, product table, product information. But if it's getting more and more, it's not that kind of easy, and you don't want to deal with that to manually classify your data artifacts. So automatic classification is a thing, and we will see how it works in the demo. And data, it's not just data that is stored here and data is not transferred. Data is a living thing, and data is transferred from one part to another storage somewhere. And maybe you have some sort of data warehouse in your organization where data comes from different sources, transactional sources, into your analytic environment. So you have some sort of data transformation, data transport, and data supply chain. Where does my data come from? Where does my data go to? And that is called data lineage. That is also a thing to get more to know about your data estate. And last, but not least, it's the business that is really, really interested in getting to know where is our customer data, where is our product information, where do we store our Internet of Things information, and so on and so forth. And what we need here, there is the classification. I already mentioned that one, and the business context. Those can be similar, but they can differ. The classification, well, that one can be like a tag, this is an email address, or within that column in your database table, you find passport numbers, something like this. For the business context, let's think a little bit more general, like, well, that is a customer entity, that is a product entity, that is whatever. So business context is a little bit more, I would say, a little bit more general, and to bridge the gap between the technical solution, so that column contains my product information, to, okay, in that database table, we've got product information or customer information. And now let's dive a little bit into Azure Purview. What's in there? So it's unified data governance. And there are things that are needed to get a system ready for the purpose of cataloging your data, storing your data estate, classifying your data, and working with that thing. So we've got the data sources on the bottom. We've got on-prem, multi-cloud, hybrid data sources, and we've got different types of data sources, the operational sources, and we've got the analytic sources, or even software as a service sources. And those sources can be linked. We can configure sources. They are called sources in Azure Purview, and we specify the connection to a system. And the next step is we need to tell Purview how to scan and what to scan. And scanning and classifications are two steps that are looking like they are working together. But the scanning itself, I often refer to the technical inventory. Connecting to the database, listing all the tables, listing all the columns, getting the data types, and so on and so forth. The classification, that part looks on the data. Select top 100 from customers table and get some data profiling, get some regular expression matching, and applying the classification tags afterwards. So those are the two technical steps that are required to get the data from the source systems into the data map. And within the data map, we've got the data estates. The data assets. Data asset can be a table. A data asset can be a file in the data lake. A data asset can be a pipeline in your Azure Data Factory. And those data assets, they are linked to a source. That table is stored in the database. And the lineage, what is done between those different data assets, that is the connection. So we've got a source table in a SQL Azure database, and we've got a copy activity in a Azure Data Factory pipeline, and we store the result to a file in the data lake. That is the lineage graph. And the classification, well, they are applied on our assets, like email address, PII information, whatever, passport numbers, and so on and so forth. With that information, it's nice to have that information, but we need to get a user interface. Microsoft calls it the unified experience. It's, well, a user interface for the data catalog to search the data, to search for some keywords, to search for assets in SQL databases, to search for business glossary terms that can be applied to your assets, and to have a look at the data lineage. And what is really, really important, the automatic classification and scanning, it's a start. But in many cases, you need to manually curate the data. And we will see it in the demo. There are some things that Purview doesn't know and is not able to know, like who is the expert for the database, for the product data in our ERP system, and so on. So we need to manually curate the data. And there are, like many other tools like Synopsys Analytics and so on and so forth, other services that can be connected. So we not only as sources, like getting data from a SQL database or a SQL server into Perfume, but also to connect your Synapse workspace to your Perfume data catalog to search there. And I will show it in the demo how those two are working together. And last but not least, Azure Purview, it's not built up from the greenfield. The Perfuse team decided they are building upon the Apache Atlas system. And maybe you've heard about that. It's an open source data governance service. And that Apache Atlas system, well, they allow us to work with the system using open APIs, REST APIs. And those REST APIs are also available for Azure Purview. So it's not only the available scanners, it's not only the user interface in Perfuse Studio in the Azure portal, it's also the REST API that is very, very powerful. And what you can do with the REST API is, if there is a source system that doesn't allow, or Azure Purview doesn't come with a pre-built and built-in scanner for that source system, we could use the REST API, the Apache Atlas API, to push the data into the Purview environment. In the user interface, it doesn't, there's no difference between assets that were scanned from built-in scanners and some entities that were created using the REST API. And yeah, what's in there? It's an Azure service, and there are different levels of, I would say, license that are applied and can be applied. But in the current state, Azure Purview is in preview. We can't select the different levels. It's just there. But what is there and planned, there will be some sort of licensing level, which is called C0, which is the Purview catalog, the platform. It's the data map to store the data, to catalog the data, and so on and so forth. If you want to work a little bit more and apply business context and apply business glossary and to have a look at the lineage, well, we need to have a look at the C1 level of the licenses. And for the data catalog insights, I think I haven't mentioned them today. It's a thing where you can have a look and do some analytics on your data catalog. How many files, how are the different file types distributed, how many tags are applied to the different assets, and so on. That is the insights part. And that will be the D1 license. Azure Purview Studio, I already mentioned that one. It's the one-stop start for your work with Azure Purview. And it's also the start for switching into the demo. And before the demo, the question to everyone in the audience, are there any questions until now?
We haven't had anybody raise their hands as yet, so I'm assuming we're all good.
Perfect. Azure Purview, yeah, it's an Azure service and quite easy to create a new one. There is one thing you have to, well, think about: a name of your Purview account. Purview demo 1, and oh my God, it's already in use. Purview demo Wolfgang. And there's one thing you have to think about. It's the licenses. Well, the Azure team does it for you. All of them are selected during the preview. It's the size of your platform. There are two different levels and two size options you can select. It's the 4 capacity units and the 16 capacity units. I would compare it to the power, how many virtual machines or how many cluster nodes you are attaching to your Perfume instance. And be aware, Perfume is in preview. During the preview period, it's basically free. It depends on your Azure subscription type, but it's free. It's free for the next 4 days. And at the end of May or 1st of June, it will be charged. And it will be charged depending on the size of your platform. So if you select the 4 capacity unit size, well, you are paying per hour per capacity unit. And currently it's not possible to stop that one or to pause it or to scale it down and scale it up when needed. So you have to think about that. And I haven't done those kind of huge tests so far, so I'm not able to say, okay, if you have a data lake having, I don't know, 200 million of files or 400 terabytes of data, you need 16 capacity to do a classification or to work with the data catalog. Those are the two sizes, and that's it, what you can select. And nothing more. And when done, well, it's the Perfuse Studio that is starting or your starting point into your data catalog, into your data governance environment. And within that catalog, as a first thing, we need to have a look at the data sources in our environment. So there is the thing that is called, the button that is called register sources. And with that action, we are getting into the list of already registered sources within our environment. And as you can see, there are different source types. I've registered data lake storage, Azure resource groups, SQL databases, Power BI, and even an on-premise SQL server. And we can also register new sources. And as I mentioned, there are different types like databases or Azure services, like we can specify data lake storage accounts, SQL databases, managed instances, Synopsys dedicated pools, and so on and so forth. And we can also have a look at the databases, and those databases, yeah, Oracle, SQL Server, Teradata, they can live in the cloud, in a virtual machine, or we can have it on premises. And there is a self-hosted integration runtime needed to connect those two. And even Power BI is one of those supported source types. And we will see it in the demo that Power BI data lineage and Power BI information can be extracted and put into your data catalog, into the Perfume data catalog. And also, yeah, SAP, you can't miss that one. SAP can also be some source within your data list. I talked about the data map to map your data estates, your data islands on a map. And there is one thing we could have a look. It's called the map view within that thing. And if I switch to that one, what you see here is some kind of tree that can be built around your data sources. And those white boxes here, they are called collections. And collections are, yeah, a collection of registered sources. So we can group our data sources into, well, we have the business intelligence part, we've got the Azure part, we've got other sub-collections like within business intelligence, data lakes, Synapse databases. And within those collections, we can have sub-collections. And in those collections, we can have those, or the sources are applied and stored within the collection. If you specify and register a new source, yeah, it's nice, but nothing is fetched from the source into Perfume. So as a next step, we need to define scans. And the scan is the thing, the process that was on the architecture slide on the lower level, scanning, doing the inventory and data classification. And now let's have a look. Let's move over here to a SQL Azure database. And as you can see, I've already configured and successfully ran some scans. And if we move to the scan overview, we can have a look at the AdventureWorks scan. We can have a look at the history. And if we edit that one, what we get here is the more specific information. Within the source, I only registered the server name. I didn't register the database name. And with a scan, I'm telling Perfume to scan the database AdventureWorks. And within that AdventureWorks database, there are artifacts in there. We have schemas, we have tables, we have views, we have other artifacts. And the next thing is we have to scope our scan. So what are the artifacts we want to catalog? And the cataloging is the thing, the scanning, fetching the list of tables, fetching the columns, the data types, and so on. And for the classification, we need to specify the scan rule set. And the scan rule set, it's a list of classification rules. It's a list of regular expressions that are applied to the data columns, or not the data columns, to the data itself. And if Perfume finds enough data that follows a specific rule, well, a specific classification term is applied. You can use the system default scanning rules, which contain all the system classification rules, like 113 classification rules coming from different areas. Like, let's go over here. Oh no, let's go over here. Nope. I've got that one. The classification rules, the system ones, 112 system rules are available in our system, and they are divided into governance classification rules, like identifying Austria identity card numbers or Austria passport numbers. There is also some sort of personal information, like finding email addresses, date of birth, and so on, or phone numbers. And in addition to those system classification rules, we can define custom rules. And I will come back to that one later. And there's one question, Ginger.
Yeah, so all of the system classification rules, you didn't specify those? Those are just automatically available to you?
Yeah, those 112 are available for myself. And during the definition of the Azure SQL custom scan rule set, I selected those that I want to apply. And I'm just gonna switch at that part to...
So there's a list and you said pick.
There's a list, yeah.
Okay.
So what I did before the session, and I'm gonna show you that one, you can define your scan rule set. So you select those rules that you want to apply. So those are the scan rule sets. There are system defined ones for every source system. And the classification rules, that is the list of finding Austria identity card numbers. And the classification rules, they are packed into scan rule sets. So the scan rule set contains, let's take that one. You have to specify a name and the source type. So that is a scan rule set for a data lake. That is the list of file types that are supported. For the data lake, we have file types. Within the SQL database, we have some other objects we can specify. And now I can select those classification rules. And for my data lake scan rule set, I only selected the personal ones. and not the governance, financial, security, and other ones. And I can deselect, for example, the age classification rule. So that list is there, and you can just pick that one from the available list. And for my example, for my scan, I select the custom scan rule set. Pick that one, and there is one option to define a schedule or just run it once. That is the scan trigger. And when I'm done, an overview, and I could just save and or save and run that one. And I'm saved that one. And if I start a scan, Perfume gets the technical information. Perfume lists the tables. Perfume lists everything around the technical details. And as a next step, the classification is done. And the classification takes, it's quite good documented in the documentation page. It takes some sort of sampling out in the data lake. It takes 1,000 rows from database tables, something like this, and it applies the rules. And the rules are based, some of them at least, are based on regular expressions. So that is a custom classification rule I defined, and it's a classification rule to identify customer numbers. And the customer number pattern, the data pattern, well, a customer number, in our case, it starts with a KU for customer, Kunde in German, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 digits afterwards. And with the classification rule, we can specify what is the data pattern and or a column pattern. The column pattern, well, it just names the column name. So you can enter a fixed name like Kundennummer, which is customer number, or customer number, or even add a regular expression pattern in there. And whenever the scan is started and the data classification runs, data is classified. And if the column in our table is classified as DBCC Kunde, well, we get the classification of DBCC Kunde applied. And how do we access the data? How do we search within our data catalog? I'm going to go back to the start page. There is the thing that is called Browse Assets. It's one option to search your data catalog, but it's a thing when you are sure you want to, or you know where the data is stored. Like, okay, it's in a SQL database, it's in a demos database, and within that demos database, we can have a look at all those tables, views that are in there. So that are the assets. So we've got the list of 7 assets, and the list of 7 assets, well, those are tables and views. The asset browser is one thing. It's not that kind of, yeah, I would go there and search because it's not searchable using the asset browser, but there's that search box in there. And if we are looking for customer information, we get back to the search result list. And the search result list, in my data catalog, I've got 21 entries that have somehow some relationship with customers. In that case, well, customer, it's a customer table. We've got the customer comments Power BI data flow. We've got the Azure Data Factory copy activity that contains the name customer, and so on and so forth. So everything around customer is somewhere there. We've got system parameters, which actually isn't named or doesn't contain customers in there. Let's have a look over there. And we can have a look at the information about the schema of our asset, the system parameters table in our database. And there should be some thing that is called customer. So even those schema entries are returned. If you are not sure where is my data really stored, or we want to have a look at the customer data, but we need to analyze all those artifacts where email addresses are stored, we can have a look here at the classification region. And within that classification region, we can have a look, and we see that 5 of those assets, 21 assets are found. They contain something around customer, but only 5 of them do contain email addresses. So we're gonna filter to email addresses, and we see, okay, we've got 3 tables, 1 view and 1 file in a data lake storage that somehow, well, it contains email addresses. And let's have a look at the customers table here. And here they are, schema classifications. Those are the classifications that were applied during the scan and the classification process. And we can have a look at the schema itself, and we see, okay, there's a field that is called email address, and that one got applied the classification tag of email address. And there's one column that is named phone. 2 classifications are applied. So it's very easy to start with the search results. I'm gonna go back to that one and close it down. Let's see if we find a table or an artifact where we have email address and that customer information, the custom classification rule I talked about, the KU, the customer, and the 4 digits data pattern. And what we see, we've got 3 elements that do contain the DBCC Kunde information. Let's go over here and let's go to the data lake. And we see, there's the email address applied plus the DBCC classification. And we've got that column name doesn't really relate to customer information. Kennung, it's identifier in English. So it's not that kind of related, but the data pattern, well, Perfuse said, hey, I'm gonna recognize that one, and it applied the classification in here. And all the information you see here, the hierarchy, the related thing, those are, everything is connected within your data catalog. In the background, the Apache Atlas, it's a graph database. You specify different nodes, and those nodes are related. Like that file, the customer's filtered final, is related to the file system in a data lake. That is related to a storage account. That one is related to a storage account in that way. And the asset itself, the file itself, it's related to all those schema entries. So we've got 4 columns, and we've got every column with the information applied plus the classifications applied, and everything is connected in the background. Let's go back to a view in there. And what you see on the right side, it's that kind of linked services, that kind of linked and connected services approach. We could open that one, that reporting customers view in Power BI Desktop. So open in Power BI, it's a little bit, too much, I would call it. What we get is a PBIDS file. For those that don't know, Power BI data source file. Basically, it's a connection string file. If I download that one, I can open that one in Power BI Desktop, and it's directly connecting to the reporting customers view in that Wolfgang database, Windows.NET SQL Server, and unsere Produktivdatenbank database. So directly connected to Power BI from the outside. And when talking about Power BI, let's go over here and let's go back to the browse assets over there, and let's have a look at the Power BI environment. What we get is the list of workspaces. And within those workspaces, those Power BI workspaces, we've got Power BI datasets, Power BI reports, Power BI dashboards, Power BI data flows in there. And when we just select that one, the Perfume demo report, everything, the hierarchy interconnected, plus some properties. There are not that many properties coming out of Power BI, but there are updates. There are continuous updates for the different scanners, for the different sources. Like last week, we got the scanning of SQL views. So Perfume was only able to scan the tables, but last week we got views included. And if we have a look here at the lineage, well, we get some sort of lineage view. For those that know the Power BI lineage view, Perfume has something to catch up, I would say, in that kind. But we've got the Perfume report, we've got the Power BI report, the Power BI data set, and we've got the data source, the database where the data for that Power BI data set comes. We can switch to the asset and have a look at the information from the Power BI data set in that case. Another thing that is quite nice is the data lineage that comes out of the Azure Data Factory pipelines. So take that one, or take just one pipeline, and we've got the mapping data source, the copy activity, and the sink where the data is stored to. We can open that artifact directly in Azure Data Factory. So if I open that one, the pipeline itself, it's opened in there. And there's one step you have to do before Azure Data Factory pipeline or pipeline runs appear in Perfume. You have to register a linked or a Data Factory connection. And if you start a pipeline within your Azure Data Factory, the lineage information, the execution information is pushed into Perfume. So you don't have to specify a scan or something like this. So it's the other way around. What is really nice here, we can have a look at the column-wide or column-wise data lineage. If data from the source, the customers table, is transferred to the sink on the other side. And have a look at the information. We can, move to the asset on that side. So everything is connected. And in that case, it's one table serving two pipelines, which are storing the data into one sink. That is everything that comes out of the box. So scanning, classification, there was only one thing I added. It's the custom classification rule. But there is an edit button in here. And that edit button is the part where you are responsible to get better data into your data catalog. And if I open that one, we are able to classify the customer asset in here. We can apply classification at the asset level as one part, and we can edit the schema information and add classification at the schema level for a specific color. So for example, we could add the DBCC Kunden classification at the asset level, and there are those glossary terms, those business glossary terms. They are a way of structuring the information. It's the more business focused way of specifying, of classification, of defining terms. And that is also a way that in the customers table, we are storing business partner customer information and also business partner customer, as we've got here. And for the schema information, we can edit the column level classification. We can even apply glossary terms at the column level. And we can also, if you know it better than the automated scanner, you can override the data type. What is also very nice and helpful, you can define and edit the experts or the data owners. The expert is like, gonna add myself in here, and I can just say, okay, I'm the technical expert for the customers. And on the other side, it's my colleague Power BI, which is the content expert. And if we save that one, and if we go back to the search list is over here. Let's go over there, customers. We can also have a look for entities where myself or a colleague is somehow related to that asset over there. So quite nice to use the automated scanning, quite nice to use the automated classification, but you can also extend everything around it. So we can add custom classifications, as I've done, like the customer mark or the zip code, Austrian zip code classification. And the classification, it's only the tag, but it's no logic in between. So classification rules are those worker processes that are really responsible for identifying the data that is in there, like the data pattern or the column pattern. For the scan process itself, it's the scan rule sets that are needed and that can be configured. The scan rule set contains the number, if we are dealing with a data lake, the number of file formats or the list of file formats you want to analyze, and the classification rules you want to apply during the automatic classification. And also the business glossary, that one is not applied during the automated scans. The glossary, it's your turn. The glossary can be defined within the Perfume interface, user interface. We can add a new term and we can use, it's similar to the scan rules. We can use a system default template or we can create a new term template. And the new term template, in short, it contains the list of required properties you want to configure and you want to specify for a business term. And with the system terms, you can specify a business glossary term like business partner. Let's go to the edit mode. And you can add some hierarchy, like you have the business partner and you have a more specific one like business partner customer, business partner supplier, and even a preferred supplier. You can add acronyms and you can add some relationships between those business terms like customer and Kunde, or business partner, it's the same like Geschäftspartner in German. So you can have some sort of relationship in there. And also contacts there, data stewards and experts. And on the right side over here, we've got the status where all of my entries are currently in the draft mode, but we can also switch that one. Let's move that one to the approved state. Go back to the list and you can have a look here. What are all those applied or all those available glossary terms and the hierarchy and so on. If you already have your business glossary managed somewhere, you can import the terms. And even if I select all, we can export the terms. And if you want to import that one, you get a sample file, what are the columns you need to specify in the CSV file you want to upload and so on. And last but not least, it's the insights section, which has a better name than functionality as of today, I would say. It's I like the idea of having some sort of analytic approach over your data estate, but the functionality is quite limited as of today. We've got only a list of number of assets. That's all. We've got some sort of differentiation between file types like CSV, or we can have a look at Parquet files. What is the file size that is currently found and classified? We can have a look at the historic list of scans and so on, classification. As I said, I like the idea of having some sort of analytic approach. What I really miss is some sort of flexibility, like having a Power BI connector to that information, which now brings in the last part, the Apache Atlas API, which is a way of working with the Perfume data store, the foundation in the background. And with the Apache Atlas API, we can deal and create everything within our data catalog. We can create sources. We can also add new assets, like here. And there is one asset that is empty. That is not good. I've selected the wrong one. That one. That is an entry that looks like we've got a SQL server, Azure SQL Server. We've got a database and a schema in there and a table. And that entry, well, that one was manually imported using the REST API. So it's not, well, added into the Azure Purview catalog using the scanner, the automated scanning. It was imported using the REST API. And that is a quite nice way of getting the metadata out of your systems, even if there is no integrated scanner. And with that, I think I'm at the end of my round trip around the Perfuse data catalog, the Perfuse scanning approach and classification approach. And what is missing, and it's a 1-minute demo, it's the integration into Synopsys Analytics. In Synopsys Analytics, you can connect an Azure Purview account to your Synopsys workspace. And if you have done that, you change to the Data tab. And if you search, or if you start to search within your Synopsys workspace, you can specify the search scope like Perfuse or search within the Synopsys workspace. And it's the same search as you would start within Perfuse. And you get the list of tables, you get the list of Power BI artifacts and copy activities and CSV files. But there's one big difference. If we select that one, a table, we've got a similar menu, but there are 2 additional menu entries. It's the Synopsys integration, and with the Synopsys integration, we can start and create new linked service or a new integration dataset, or a new data flow at that part. If we go back and go to a CSV file, it's a little bit different because we can start data exploration directly from the Synopsys workspace using the Perfuse search results. So a very nice integration. And I think and I hope that there will be more integration. Like, think about Power BI getting together with Perfuse and having some sort of directly search option in the Power BI service. And there are other options like the data factory itself and so on that would really, really benefit of a good integration into your data catalog. And with that, I'm at the end of my session, and the mic is open for questions.
Cool. Thank you for that, Wolfgang. I like the bit at the end showing the you can get the top from the open row set. Like that a lot. Just the thing. I don't think we have any questions at this point. There's no hands up. Anybody got anything they want to say? Just unmute yourself. Okay, cool. I'm going to stop the recording there for now. So just give me 2 seconds.